Hi everyone, welcome to another vlog session, and today I'm talking about PortalCon. PortalCon is where I've pretty much just got back from, like literally a day after I've returned. I've had one day of work, and a swim session, and a shopping session. Whew, I'm tired. But I wanted to talk about the con whilst it was still kind of fresh in my mind. So what Ignacy and his gang do is that they invite a few of us, a lot of Polish press, but also a few press members from overseas in order to come to their very special one-day con that they hold in Poland. And it's not quite a con that you expect when you think of a con. You've got the trade fair style cons like DrenCon and UK Games Expo and Essen, which is mostly just a ton of shops, effectively, and some gaming thrown in. Then you've got the normal gathering of friends conventions, I like to call them, which are like AirCon and HandyCon and GridCon and StabCon and insert X word here con, all these ones where it's just basically turn up and play games, the ones that we really like to go to, regardless of whether it would be easier to just stay at home and game, we like the atmosphere of them. PortalCon is kind of more like a press event, and very much more for Polish people, because what they do is that it's effectively Portal saying, this is us, look at what we do, this is what we're bringing to you. Enjoy. It's kind of like that. Portal has a YouTube channel where Ignacy does keynotes and little speeches like that where they announce officially what's coming. But they also have a press room where you've got certain games laid out which are either brand new that are being brought to Poland, or it could be a few older titles that are finally getting the Polish translation because they don't quite have as big a distribution of games as, say, we do in the UK or US or even in other places of continental Europe. But in terms of playing games, you're only doing so much of that, particularly if you are an English speaker. If you're a Polish speaker, there's a decent amount of games on a few shelves that you can play, but not so much in the way of language-independent games, and so, for people like myself and a few of us others who can't speak Polish, obviously, there was kind of limited games we could play. But when we go to PortalCon, we're not really there to play a ton of games. It's not the focal point. We're mainly there to be social, to meet Ignacy and Mary and all the rest of the Portal gang, to see other content creators dotted around Europe rather than just people from the UK. It's just a very nice, relaxed social event. I got to hang around a lot with several content creators, including Board Game Ramblings. If you want a shameless plug, then go check out their channel. They've just recently done a vlog on PortalCon as well, but they also had a look around Lucky Duck Games, who are based in Poland, and I didn't touch that, so, if you want to check a bit of that out behind the scenes, then go check out their video. But, it was good to hang out with them and other people, and just generally, but no, just have a good time. Not so much like, oh, I've played this game and it's amazing, I've got to do this. No, it's just, hi, nice to see you, let's hang. Let's go out for a meal. Poland really takes their cuisine seriously, as well as other cuisines that they have. All their restaurants are done out really nice, and the food's really good. And of course, gotta love that exchange rate. Everything's a lot cheaper, because let's face it, with recent events happening lately around the UK, it's expensive to go anywhere, really. Except for Poland. Poland is still effectively something like 5 zloty to the pound or something around that mark. So when you see a beer for 8 zloty, it's like a cha-ching. Quite a bit of that going on. And I didn't even realise mulled beer was a thing until I saw it on the menu, and I had to have it. Lovely. We need more of that around here, please. I love mulled anything. But, drinking and eating aside, it's just great to meet the gang over there. Because one thing I've always thought about Portal games is you know who they are. They're instantly recognizable, and you can just tell they're passionate about games. A lot of these other bigger publishers, or even some of the smaller ones, you don't quite know who the face of the company is, or there's not necessarily a person you recognize and see all the time. The CEO could be buried amongst a ton of red tape and admin and all the other minions effectively in front of them. But with Portal, you see Ignacy all the time, you see Mary all the time, you see the rest of the gang all the time, and they come up and say hi and, show you around, and just generally are very nice people. I mean, that's just, to be fair, that's just the Polish people in general, this is not pandering to Poland. Generally, Poland has very nice people in there, they're very welcoming.
Well, don't look at me like I'm frickin' Frankenstein, give your father a hug.
And so, it makes for a nice, pleasant time, even if I didn't get to play as many games as I would say at any other convention per se. But yes, this is Portal focused, and basically what I just wanted to go over really was just some of the announcements that Ignacy made. I mean, you can go check out his Keynotes video on the Portal YouTube channel, but I wanted to go over what was announced in a brief kind of what am I looking forward to, you know, what stuff caught my interest in particular, as well as some first impressions over a few games that I did play, which aren't brand spanking new, well, at least not all of them, but, you know, I just wanted to give my first impressions of them as a kind of little bolt-on. So, you know, looking at my tablet here with some of the photos I took, because memory is only so good. But looking through here, let's see. So, you know their games. I mean, you can see a lot of them on my shelf here. I mean, Robinson Crusoe over there. We've got Empires of the North, Imperial Settlers, First Martians, I believe, is behind me. Predator Porter is right there. I like a lot of Portal games. You know, I don't have them all. Some of them are like 2-player only, and you know me, I struggle to get that to the table. But there's just something really consistent about Portal games that make me like them a lot, even if they're not necessarily in my top 20 games. And this is something that some people don't realize. Just because a publisher features heavily in my top 20 games or so doesn't mean that they have to be my favorite publisher, because a lot of those publishers can put out a lot of rubbish from time to time. They just happen to have made a few that really sing to me. But if you want to talk consistency, and I'll talk about this more on a future podcast episode, but Portal games just seem to be consistently fun for me. And a lot of that is because of their, you know, Ignacy's book cover, you know, motto, board games that tell stories. He's very big on theme. It does not that the game has to be 100% thematic. I mean, Empires of the North and Imperial Settlers are not the most thematic games in the world, but you've got the artwork, you've got the aesthetics, and as he said, you feel like you're telling the story, or you remember stuff that happened during the game and what you did. And of course, things like Detective and First Martians and Robinson Crusoe, highly thematic games that instantly are just like playing through a scenario or story, and that kind of thing sings to me. Even Predator Porter, the first heavy economic game I actually like. You know, I gave this, what, like a 9 out of 10 when I reviewed it last year? And a lot of it is just because the theme is so strong. It just works for me. You know, better than, oh, look, here's my little train, and oh, look, I got shares. Yay. Screw that. You know, fashion, okay, I'm not exactly a fashion expert, but that is so much more an interesting thing, right, than trains. I'm sorry. Stupid trains. But more on that another time. So let's have a look at some of the stuff that's coming out. So first off, let's focus on Detective. Detective, where's that? Right there behind me. This is a fantastic co-op deduction game. Heavy as all get out. I suck at it right royally, but it's just so thematic and so brain-burny with good stories, good campaigns, and a lot of scenarios. The expansion that brought you back to the 80s, it gave you that kind of Beverly Hills Cop vibe. It's really cool. I haven't even finished it yet. I've done the first 2 scenarios and need to do the third one, especially now because they've announced some extra content. First off, you've got Under the Radar, which is an expansion DLC for the LA Crimes expansion. Basically, I'm not going to spoil because, to be fair, I haven't finished it all myself, but there's a certain character that you'll see again in Under the Radar, and it's very much a hunt them down kind of scenario. But of course, from what Ignacy is saying, and you know what his games are like, it's kind of like, play my game, you will lose. Have fun. It's a bit like that. This guy is meant to be like one of the smartest villains you'll come across in Detective, and it's like set in that timeline. So you won't really be able to play this without major spoilers unless you have completed the LA Crimes expansion. But, you know, I like the LA Crimes setting, so another scenario in this one, I'm going for that. Dig Deeper is a scenario that's going to be by Rob Daviau. So he's getting different designers to do writing and their own standalone scenarios. Rob Daviau, you know, I mean, like the Pandemic Legacy type thing, you know, this guy has done RPGs, he's done all sorts. This guy knows how to write good stories. And the idea of having a detective case by him, which is involving like 70s and Cold War and various other like espionage type things, there's only so much we were told about the plot, but it's going to introduce 1 or 2 little like minor mechanics that like will change it up from a typical scenario. Just in general, I'm looking forward to see how other designers have their own take on the Detective franchise. And Season 1 is a box set expansion, a big box set expansion with a lot of standalone cases, and they'll take place at different time periods, different, you know, settings, and just generally, or like worldwide in the sense, like one might be over in America, one might be elsewhere. But I'm keen for this. And I know that the Board Game Ramblings weren't as keen on it as I was, but I get where they're coming from, because some people are like, oh, I really like those campaign stories where you go into like case 2 and it revolves back to case 1 at times. That's cool. It's hard for me to play the campaigns quick enough, though, so that I don't forget exactly what I've just found out in the previous case. I mean, the first game was 5 campaigns long. It is a nightmare to play 5 of this in a row, and find the time to do it. LA Crimes, it's been a while since I played the first 2 cases. Now I've got to try and do the third one, but I will give it a shot. I really like the standalone cases. It's easier to bring new people in and show them the game. It'll be easy for me to just go, well, I got a few hours spare, so fine, I will chuck a case of Detective down. And, I'm looking forward to this one in particular, but I can see why, if you want more of the campaign-style stories, this probably won't necessarily be high on your wish list, but for me, standalone cases, what am I getting here? At least another 5 or 6, probably more. Can't wait. That's what I want. Imperial Settlers Roll and Write is getting an app. Now, I'm not sure this is a game that desperately needed an app. I mean, it was a fairly portable roll and write anyway. It's probably my second favourite roll and write in existence. But the box was small. It had a few dice, a pencil, some pads. It worked pretty well without the need for an app. But of course, I have a feeling that this app will be quite popular, and it will certainly make life a bit easier for people who want to try the game and don't have the physical copy. My worry is, though, is that if the app is particularly good, most people aren't really going to care about having the physical copy anymore, because there probably won't be a huge amount of difference between the two, except one is infinitely more portable and probably cheaper than the other. But it'll be cool to see this one come out. Maybe I'll give it a solo playthrough if I've got time, if it's got a Steam version. But for those of you who like to get games on apps, particularly the small games that you can just say, you know what, a few quid, I'll buy the app, this could be up your street. Empires of the North. Oh, yes. One of my 10 out of 10s from last year. What was it? In my top 3, I think? Was it top 5? I can't remember, but it was very high up in my ranking. Actually, yeah, top 5 of the year of 2019. A solid engine builder game. Even better than Imperial Settlers, which you notice I still have. Imperial Settlers is still a good game. I just prefer Empires of the North. Well, guess what? We're getting more factions. Yeah, would you know it? I got given a copy of Roman Banners, so in February time, I think a few of you should be seeing Roman Banners come out, and this will be 2 Roman-style factions of the game. Yes, we're kind of glossing over the fact that it says of the North. Believe me, more about that in a second, but 2 Roman factions. These are pretty cool factions. I've tried them once each on solo mode, and they feel a little bit more approachable than the Japanese ones were, particularly if you're a new player just jumping into the game. So I would actually possibly say on the first impressions that you could get Romans first before you get Japanese if you're looking to build yourself up gradually to some of the harder level factions. But we're also getting barbarians. Yes, barbarians are getting their own faction, and these ones feel like they're going to be a bit more on the take that from. And, keywords like sabotage are going to come into play, where you can make people spend more resources to trigger their own stuff. And to be fair, raising is not something that happens a lot in this game, which is good and bad in some sense. But at least if you're playing against a barbarian horde, you know that they're going to potentially come and knock down some of your stuff. Not permanently, but they're going to make life a bit more tricky for you. And of course, they were a staple in Imperial Settlers. But more factions, why not? I mean, this game only came out, like Gen Con last year, and the amount of support it's had is insane. Again, another good thing about Portal games, they support their games. They don't just let them die a slow death. With the exception of First Martians. However, I can understand that one, and to be fair, there's enough content in the game anyway. And there were 1 or 2 DLC scenarios for it. But after that, he was, I don't know if this was certain, but I feel like it was, he's going to bring back Egyptians.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the Egyptian factions. I mean, to be fair, more factions for a great game, I cannot wait. But you're going to have to do a big box at some point, Ignacy, if you're going to want to store all this. But yeah, Empires of the North. That's going to be a little bit weird. I think the box cover is going to have North crossed out and then South written in, just as a gimmick or like a gag. But it was just quite funny the way he was just very nonchalant about it. It's kind of like, yep, I want to bring Egyptians back. Whatever. Deal with it. It's like very much just say that I'm, my company, my game, I'm going to bring Egyptians back. And to be fair, I quite like the balls on that.
Everybody got that?
Imperial Settlers, though, if you are fans of that game and didn't like Empires of the North, don't worry, Imperial Settlers is not dead, because now we have Rise of the Empires. This is a expansion done by, I'm trying to make sure I pronounce the name right, Joanna, sorry, I can't even read the, let me see if I can win in. Yes, Joanna Kiyanka. I'm not even going to, I apologize profusely for my incapableness of pronouncing foreign names. But this is an open world campaign for Imperial Settlers. So it's still going to have that engine building feel, but it will take place over multiple eras. You'll be able to get technologies, different buildings, go after provinces, which will get you cards that you start games with. And of course, if you get too many of them, then you've got to pay a lot of the upkeep costs in order to keep them going. Apparently, this is meant to have a kind of balancing factor where even if one player has played through a ton of this, other people can join in and still be on the same level playing field. No idea how that's going to work. That's a bit of a bold claim. But if they can do it, fair play to them. I'm not going to knock it. But this will now introduce like a lot more cards, a lot more abilities, a lot more ways to play Imperial Settlers in an open world style setting. And yeah, I'm cool with that. The only downside is that I'm going to have to go through my Imperial Settlers collection at some point and deck build those factions, because I don't think this is a setting where I'm going to want to just shove everything into one big pile and say play with that. I think I'm going to need to have a look at my Imperial Settlers collection and sort of cherry pick my favourite cards, build some decks and leave it like that, and then treat it a bit like Empires of the North, a different edition or something, because I just don't see myself throwing every single card into the mix, because I think it will be too much. But if you want to hear more about how the game's going to operate, then again, check out Board Game Rambling's channel. They, they had a microphone. They do convention footage. It's not something I tend to do really. Why muscle in on other people's patches if they do it better? But they recorded Joanna giving like a spiel about the game. So by all means, if you want to find out more, go check it out. So over that, what do we get? Oh God, what is going on? Oh yes, it's because I zoomed in. Now this is one I'm really looking forward to. Oh yes, Robinson Crusoe is a brilliant co-op game. It is super hard, but what I wasn't as big of a fan of, not in a bad way, but it didn't win me over as much, was that Mystery Tales expansion. It's highly regarded on BGG, I'm not going to knock it, but it didn't give me exactly what I wanted in Robinson Crusoe. I liked the campaign, the new rules it threw in was good, but it was a lot more sort of complexities to deal with, more tokens that you're not certain, hang on, I need this in horror mode, or do I need this in this? Oh god, and horror mode, seriously, was the game not hard enough already? Decent expansion, but not one that I was like blown away by. This, however, I can't wait for it. It is a compendium book that he's going to put on Kickstarter that has loads of different scenarios for the game. That's what I want. Keep the same tokens, keep the same cards, maybe throw in a few extra encounter cards or a few extra inventions every now and again. But for the most part, I just want different scenarios with unique stories and unique playing styles. We've got like the ones in the base game and some DLC ones, but to have a book of them where I can basically just go, right, what do I need? I need something for 3 or less players, relatively straightforward, done. And he claims there's going to be like an index at the back that will allow you to do stuff like that. Again, bit of a bold claim, because I'm not entirely certain how you can make an index that like comprehensive, but like I say, surprise me. But just having that book. And on Kickstarter, he's going to have like them write a ton of scenarios. He's going to invite fans of the game to write their own scenarios and submit them in. And soon you'll be able to create this huge book, which will be like nice looking. And you'll just be able to play Robinson Crusoe in so many different settings that it will like quadruple its replay value, if not more. And that's what I want. I want more scenarios. Just give me like a chance to be able to go, okay, we're playing zombie raccoons attack at night scenario. Okay, whatever. Why that's on the brain, I have no idea. But, stuff like that, I'm looking forward to this. I think the Kickstarter's coming, doesn't say on the picture, but somewhere around March time, I believe he said about it. Honestly, I'm looking forward to this one. You can probably guess I will be an insta-backer on this, because this is something that I reckon will really, ignite Robinson Crusoe again for me, because it's been a while since I played it. It's hard to remember the rules, but I do want to get it to the table again, actually, that and First Martians, because I kind of miss those two. But give me a book of scenarios. Perfect. Okay. Vienna Connection. Now, this was unexpected. I didn't see this one coming at all. This is going to be, by the looks of it, quite a heavy board game based on the detective card system. It's going to use that same system, but rather than being the CIA and, well, like being like a policeman, sorry, and using Antares and doing all that, instead, you're kind of espionage spies, and you're going into Vienna, you're encountering this huge plot, huge like spy and deception espionage style plot. So think like Cold War mixed with a bit of James Bond, mixed with a bit of like modern day stuff. I think it's set in, the 70s time, or is it slightly earlier? I can't exactly remember. But with this, it's going to have that detective card system, but there's some extra mechanics on top because you'll have limited resources. You'll have different characters who have different abilities, like one's a fast talker, one's a good shot, that kind of thing. And the story elements will not just simply be a case of flip the card over and see what happens next. It will be a case of, right, well, I need to send agents over here, right? I need to manage my agent resources. I need to, manage my artillery. I'm sorry, my armory. Who am I going to give guns to? Where are those guns going to be? And on top of that, the story cards will have elements where if you send certain characters on a particular story, it will have different outcomes. You send them off to go inspect go talk to this old lady at a house, for example, and you send the person with the gun, the grandma might get intimidated. You send the fast talker and you get lots of different information out. You send the stealth person and you find out that somebody's already there and you sneak up on them. Stuff like that. Again, sounds very bold because the box is going to have to be quite big, I think, to encompass all this. But as I keep saying, surprise me. These are concepts that I think can work really well. And if you want to take detective to the next level, then this is definitely one to look out for. But you probably won't hear much of this until probably later in the year. Okay, and I think that's the majority from the keynotes. Certainly the main ones from there. So let's move on to so there's a few other pictures I'll stick up, like the Imperial Settlers storage box. You can see the picture there with all the cards in it. Yes, it will hold everything. I think we're going to need everything. I think we're going to need one for Empires of the North, though, at this rate. More so than Imperial Settlers. But, looking at the rest of my pictures, I think it's, you can see the sort of games that they're bringing there. So you've got, Reavers of Midgard, Ishtar, Smartphone, Cooper's Island, Aquatica, Barrage. Well, I didn't say he was bringing all good games to Poland, okay? Some of them are. You have to throw a bad one in there every now and again. You motherfucker! Demarker, I'm looking forward to getting that on Kickstarter fulfillment at some point. I thought we were supposed to have it by now. I've already mentioned Cooper Island, God of War, Meso. I don't know very much about Meso. I didn't get a chance to try out Skytopia. So, there's a few, cool games and, not so cool games, just from my opinion, that are being brought to Poland and that I got to see in the press room. So, let's go on to some first impressions then. I got to play a few of the new games. Not that many, because obviously I was socializing with other people, but there were two in particular that I just wanted to give my thoughts on. One being Smartphone, and one being Skytopia. Both games I'd wanted to try out a lot. I barely got a quarter of a game of Smartphone played at the Games Expo last year, and I missed out on Skytopia at the Essen Fair because I played Aquatica instead. Now, all of these are being distributed by Cosmodrome Games, and they seem to be getting a lot of buzz at the moment for having these games that not only look good but play well. And so I was quite excited to try more of these out, and I have to admit, Aquatica was a very good game when I played it at Essen. I look forward to them releasing that on more of a widespread, English-speaking distribution. Probably around March time, from what I've heard, so I'll try and get that one reviewed at the time. But I never got to try Skytopia and, Smartphone, so I tried them here. Both of them being played, I believe... No, one was 3-player Skytopia and one was 5-player Smartphone, because apparently everybody who plays Smartphone says you must play it with 5 players. And I can see why. Because I don't think the map scales with players from what I know. This is first impressions and I didn't read the rulebook, but it does look like, oh, I see. If you want to have all that all that competition with all the different markets, then you kind of want it with 5 players. Of course, that's a bit of a catch-22 situation, though, because the game starts outstaying its welcome before too long, because it's not the heaviest economic game I've ever played. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it light, probably more midweight, I think, but it's reasonably light. It's not ridiculously heavy, but what is interesting about it is that you have these two tablets, effectively, two tiles with different screens, icons. Basically, they're supposed to be apps, and it's smartphones. After all, you're selling smartphones, and you're supposed to basically arrange them in such a way that whatever icons are showing is how powerful certain actions in the rest of the round are going to be. And that's a cool concept. Until you wait for 5 of you to hurry up and do it. It's a bit AP generating, this mechanic. I mean, thematic-wise, I'm not entirely certain why it's there, but it's like, okay, fair enough, it's cool. Although trying to hide it behind this little screen here that doesn't stand up properly is a bit of a pain. And the screen pretty much does nothing to cover what you're supposed to be doing. All it does is that it seeks to remind you about your times table. Okay, seriously? It's like, we all did math at school, okay? We know our times table. At least I'd like to hope we do. But the tile mechanic is cool. Trying to think, oh god, I want more of those icons, but I can't, because if I do that, I can't have that way up, and if I flip that over, then I can have all the research icons, but then I can't do this. It's very frustrating in a good way. It's brain burning, and it's probably the best element of this game. But my god, anybody remotely prone to AP who touches those tiles is going to hold this game up like you wouldn't believe, and be warned. Problem is, after that point, it's kind of on rails. You go through each action and you basically just play out the actions as you expect. And that's not as entertaining. It's like, right, well, I knew what I was going to do in the research phase. I'm going to go research this. And then I knew what I was going to do in the logistics phase. I'm going to go move over to here. But a lot of it is based on turn order. Depending on how expensive or cheap you're going to sell your phones are during the round, dictates when you go before other players. And that's basically the crux of this game. Being able to time your price, play your price in such a way that you can go before the player who you're worried about is. It's like, oh, that player could really mess me over if they sell to these markets first. But if I go before them, it's that kind of mechanic. But this game can really beat you over the head if you're not careful. If you don't spread out across the map, you're going to lose pretty badly, because you need to have those like second place points in some of those areas for majorities. And if you stay in 1 or 2 locations, then you're honestly going to lose. But on top of that, it's just one of those things where if somebody beats you to something and then like sells to all the customers and then you don't get to sell most of your stuff, you're kind of screwed. Like, really screwed. It's punishing when it happens. It doesn't make you feel good about your turn when it's like, oh, I did all this and, oh, I got speed because they just happened to be $1 cheaper on their smartphones to me. It's kind of like how Food Chain Magnate basically punches you in the face because you're slightly more expensive than another player. It's not very fulfilling. It's not very fun. Here, it's the same problem, just done lighter. And somebody actually described this as a kind of Food Chain Magnate-like game. Yeah, I don't hate this game, okay? I don't want to burn Smartphone. I want to burn Food Chain Magnate, but I don't want to burn this one, okay? So maybe light is a good thing, I don't know, but I didn't really compare this that much to Food Chain Magnate. But I just kind of found that once I was done with that tile aspect, the rest of the round just didn't feel that good, or it felt punishing. And I felt that the only way you could catch up other players was for other players to really gang up on them. And if that doesn't happen, they'll just run away with the game. And we had that situation where first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place stayed exactly the same throughout the entire game until the last round when about 3 players decided to jump on the leader, making the first and second player switch round. But third, fourth, and fifth place might as well not have really been playing because their positions never changed. It's essentially meaning that you start off badly, you're unlikely to be doing much better later on. And so, I don't mind this game. I mean, the Stark aesthetics are okay. I mean, it's cool, clear graphic design, but it's not exactly a looker. And I like that tile mechanic. The tile mechanic was fun, and it's probably the main crux of the game. So I have to admit, that aspect was good. But I'm kind of not desperate to play this one again, especially if I know that it's going to take too long. And I felt like it did that with the 5-player count, where you're just waiting for people to hurry up and do the turns. And if you're not doing much in a particular round, like, oh, I didn't want to research this round because I'm doing more logistics. Well, sit there and wait for everybody to hurry up and do their research turns before you get to do anything. There's a bit of downtime that happens in this. And I just felt that after a certain length, I thought, this game should have ended by now. Why hasn't it? And it's only 5 rounds long, but it felt like 1 round too many. But like I say, I didn't hate this game. I just thought it was kind of okay, it's average. Some people have been buzzing about this, but there's been quite a lot of divisive opinions as well, where people have not been as keen on it. I'm kind of in the middle. You know, it's fine. I'll play it, but I'm not desperate to hunt it out either. I'd probably, first impressions, I'd give it a 6, possibly a 5. I just find it average, but I don't think it's bad at all. I could see why people would like this one, and certainly if economic games are your thing, then give it a shot, see what you think. And so, moving on to the second of 2 first impressions, Skytopia. Again, Cosmic Drone Games, we're going with this. I was excited to play this one because I've got a lovely little game down here. Well, not a lovely little game, Deus. Really cool game, got the expansion, you really want the expansion, and it basically plays on this concept where you build up a tower of cards, and as you do certain actions, you get to trigger all the effects on that column from ground up. So I get to trigger this, then trigger this, then trigger this, and trigger this, and you can build up some really cool combos, some cool paths to victory. It's a bit of a weird looking game, but it's very like bone dry, but it's very fulfilling. It's got good replay value. It is an underrated game. This is like one of Z Garcia's favorites, and I'm not sure if it's made my top 100, but you know, maybe I need to play it a bit more, get some, like, rekindle some of it, but I do like it. It's easily like a top 125 game, I think, for me. It just never quite meets the top 100, although who knows next time. But with this Skytopia, this is kind of like a simplified version of Deus. You're collecting cards, yes, and you are putting them in columns, 4 different columns. There's 4 abilities for each of the 4 colors, so there's 16 total abilities you need to know. You're building up the combos, and it is very much simplified Deus. The twist with this one is that you have these golems, which are basically just dice that you never roll, and you have a timer mechanic, a cogwheel, where depending on what value the die is, dictates how expensive it is to place the golem, and how, you know, the golem, whatever, and also how long it's going to take to build the card, because you don't build it instantly. You get the ability when you play the die, but in order to get it into your towers, you have to build it. And, you know, people can come by and, you know, spend more and put the die at a better value than yours, so they build it quicker and nick the card. More on that later. But, you know, that's generally the crux of the game, trying to manipulate these dice in such a way that you can build these cards, put them in your 4 towers, meet some endgame scoring objectives, and for the most part, it's basically that. I wanted to really like this game. I thought, oh yes, Deus, but simpler. This could replace Deus. It doesn't. Firstly, the good points. It does look beautiful. Good artwork, you know, nice production quality. The money's a little bit generic, but oh well, money, it's cardboard tokens. You get a little blimp as your first player marker, but overall it's a nice production and very colourful on the table. And I like the standee with the cogwheel that you turn in order to actually say, oh yeah, that's going to complete soon. But, and it's not that long a game. It took about an hour, I think, to play it. 75 minutes tops, I think, with teaching. So, you know, it keeps to a good duration, and that was with 3 players. Probably would take longer with 4, but, you know, certainly I think the time on the box, which I think says 40 to 60, touch and go. I mean, easy with 2 players, doable with 3, although they need to be familiar with the game, impossible with 4. I can't see a 60-minute 4-player game of this. But here's some problems that I personally have. It's too mean. Wow. This game punches you in the face quite repeatedly. Well, at least not the game, but the other players. There's a reasonable amount of interaction in this game, not necessarily with your own towers, but with the dice. As I said, people can usurp your dice by buying, you know, paying more money, or using abilities to put their dice at certain values and build it before you. And it's very much manipulating turn order, because you know who's going to start each round, because it keeps going round and round and round. And you're thinking, well, hang on, next round I'm going to go first. Therefore, if I place lower than that, they can't react to it, so I can nick that card off them. And a lot of that happens. Too often. You know, and it's not like, oh, that hurt. Oh, well, I'll get you next time. No, this happens to you repeatedly, and you cannot recover. If somebody usurps you on a card, all you get is free coins. That's it. Your die comes back, so you have to spend another action putting the die back on, and you get free coins. coins are tight in this game. It's nice to get money, but free doesn't get you very much. At least not anything useful. And so, while they get a cool card and build up points and do all this stuff, you're kind of left in the lurch. And in a 2-player game, that's fine. In fact, I think this Tobia can work pretty well as a 2-player game, but with 3 and 4, you're going to get that 1 player, possibly 2 players, who are just constantly being dicked on. And, you know, as a result of being dicked on too much, they are just going to suffer and not enjoy the game. And I found that myself because I just could not do anything. I thought, oh, I wanted to get lots of money. Fine, I'll get a bunch of yellow buildings. They barely got me any money at all, despite having a bunch of them. You know, people could get more money just by doing other things, or, you know, not have to spend money by doing other things. But I just couldn't do anything with the dice. So, you know, people could just literally come by and just go, well, you can't do anything with the dice, I'll come beat you, there you go, done. Really wasn't that fun. And the red cards seem ridiculously powerful. You've got 4 categories. Purple is just weird abilities. Half of them are really good, half of them are rubbish. Blue is just pay money for victory points, or straight up victory points. They're pretty boring and they're pretty lame. The yellow gets you money. 1 or 2 of them are reasonably good at getting you money, except one of them actually gives the opponents a little bit of money as well, and others are just very boring amounts of cash. But it never feels like it gives you anywhere near enough cash, because it's not like you can repeatedly trigger them unless you build a ton of yellow cards. But even then, I found other players able to get as much, if not more money than me by doing other things that didn't involve the yellow cards. But the red cards, oh my god. The red cards are stupidly powerful. There's a couple of them that let you put out dice on low values, you know, like late timing values for free. Saving actions like that is pretty good, especially when you chain a few of them together. But there's 2 of them that enable you to fast forward some of your dice for free so that they can complete in quicker time. I cannot tell you how broken this game is when somebody gets hold of 2 of those things, maybe 3 of them even, and puts them in one single tower. The amount of fast forwarding they're able to do, you can't keep up with. You can put your dice somewhere and then they can just go, right, well, I'll put that down there and trigger fast forward, fast forward, fast forward. Then these go down to there. That didn't cost me any money. And by the way, I'm nicking these 2 cards before you do. Excuse me? The reds were ridiculously good. Funny enough, I didn't go for reds because I wanted to do something different and I suffered for it. You know, I thought, well, there's 3 scoring opportunities here. One of them is red. Okay, fine. They're going for the reds. Let me go for these other 2 tiles and try and score highly in them. Problem is, they're not particularly well balanced either, it seems. Some of them give you free points for instances of various conditions, which aren't that difficult to meet. And yet there was one that I aimed for a lot, which was having the tallest tower, and you get 1 point for each instance. So hang on, something that is still quite hard to do gets you a third of the points than something else which is pretty straightforward to do. Oh, I need a different guild symbol. Well, there's 4 of them and the whole deck pretty much empties itself, so I'm pretty certain I'll find it eventually. Not that difficult. And add to that the player abilities, which definitely are not balanced at all. I mean, some of them can, like, you know, get you tons of money or get you extra dice and points for doing very little. The ability I had was every time I paid 10 money to put my die out on the best value possible, I got a point. 1 measly point for paying an exorbitant amount of money. 10 is a lot of money. I get a point. Whoop-de-doo! You know, the other powers are so much better. I think the red power, one of the red powers is a free fast forward of a die. That's so much more useful. So much more useful. So, certain things about this game just really irked me when I was playing it. I maybe need to try it a bit more and see, but I just remember far too much punishing interaction, far too much power in those red cards, you know, a lot of AP can generate. I mean, I thought this was going to be a really quick game. It's not super fast. I mean, an hour to an hour and a quarter is not bad with 3 players, but you're only doing so many actions in that time and people can AP like crazy because it's hard to tell what value you should put a die on and where you should put it because other people could usurp you and you don't know whether they're going to or not. It just left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. So wasn't a huge fan of this one. I mean, probably like a 5 for me overall, possibly even less. Just didn't really sing to me. But maybe I just need to try it a couple more times and see. These are just first impressions, okay? First impressions from a single game. These aren't full reviews. But I do want to play Aquatica more because that's the one from Cosmodrome Games where I'm like, ooh, yeah, I really want to try this one. So, yeah, well, it is what it is. So that's a couple of first impressions of games, but overall, PortalCon is a good social time for me. It's not one that I feel you need to go to unless you are A, Polish, and B, press, because you're probably looking to play a ton of games. You're not going to do that here. But let's say you're in the middle of January for some reason and you're visiting Poland for a trip, a weekend break, a week away or something, like you're skiing, and you just feel like, I've got a spare day. Couldn't hurt you to just drop by PortalCon and give it a look-see and get to meet the Portal gang. Talk to Ignacy. He likes to talk to people now, even though he's running around trying to do everything. And it's a good, friendly bunch. It's just a nice, pleasant feeling. Great publisher, great gang of people, interesting country, great food, great drink, cheap prices. I can't knock that. Blisteringly cold. I mean, literally, I'm like there in my big wool jacket and I'm still getting cold. This is like negative degrees, wearing my gloves, and it's very much like the I forget his name, the Russian actor or sorry, the bodybuilder dude from Simpsons, where it's like the goggles do nothing. It's like me with the gloves. It's like my hands, the gloves, they do nothing. It's like freezing my hands off because my gloves aren't particularly thermal gloves. They're more kind of cycling gloves, like bike hand grip, like outdoor hiking gloves. They're not really designed to keep me warm in the winterest, most arctic of conditions, But overall, I had a good time, It was good to be back, but it was good to be there as well. I look forward to seeing them, hopefully, at UKG if they can make it. If not, like I say, there's always Essen. There's other conventions potentially as well. So, like I say, keep doing what you do, Portal. You're a great publisher. You're a great bunch of people. Thanks for the invite, and I'll see you soon. So I'm going to wrap up my vlog there. Take care. If you like what you see, subscribe to the channel, ding the darn and all that gubbins. And if you want to support the channel in any way and get early access to some of my review videos, then check out my Patreon campaign and donate anything from, $1 a month to even more if you're feeling ridiculously generous. But even $1 a month goes a long way when it's done en masse. So take care. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. And remember, as always, regardless of whether it's Portal or any other publisher, it's only a game. Take care, and I'll see you soon.